thanks for inviting me to share a few of my perspectives. I must admit, having chaired the ImROC programme board in a kind of midwifery way, when I took up the job of Chief Exec of West London, I did go to the Trust with some trepidation, because there I was chairing this board at a high strategic level, and I was going to one of the pilot sites, and I did have some trepidation. I think when I got there, what was I going to find? West London, I think Lynn said that her trust was one of the 3 trusts providing specialist care. Well, mine is the trust providing the best specialist secure care. When I got to the trust, it was very reassuring. I discovered the organisation. I went to board meetings. The boards were talking about recovery. I now see all new members of staff, so I go to every induction programme. It really pisses the HR department off because they have to change dates, but I go and see all the staff. Last week I went to an induction programme and I make them all put their hands up, and 5 of the staff describe themselves as peer workers. Okay? So I can show you strategy documents. We've got a recovery hub, mainly because the rest of you have got colleges and we wanted to call it something else. We bought a supermarket. One man's recession is another man's cheap accommodation. And so I can tell you all of that. I can show you peer workers, I can show you recovery hubs, I can show you strategic visions, I can show you all that. The question is, fur coat and no knickers. It seems to me if recovery doesn't touch the everyday life of the service user, then it's a trend, it's a fashion. It runs the risk of going the way of many other fantastic models. So a wonderful thing has happened in the trust, a wonderful thing is happening in the trust, in that we're now talking about how recovery touches the everyday life of the everyday delivery of the service. So we talk about CPA reviews, recovery-based CPA reviews. When I arrived 7 months ago, I wandered around the trust. Some of the CPA reviews were the team met, had a good chat, invited the patient and sometimes the carer in, and then did what appeared to be a recovery-based discussion. What we're now seeing in our forensic services is something different. So the team meet with the patient and the carer beforehand over a cup of tea. They then sit down and they've altered the CPA model, so they start to talk about what recovery actually means in the context of their care programme approach. Now, it's only happening in about a third of the organisation. So I can go to other places where the CPA is, but that's the test. That's the test. Recovery colleges, peer workers, well, maybe not, but the test has to be, does recovery touch every aspect of the individual's life? Because if it doesn't, the pilots are pilots. So the thing I've learned is to avoid the risk of all fur coat and no knickers. Recovery colleges, hubs, peer workers are the fur coat. They're an important fur coat, but the test, the absolute test, is whether every individual patient in the everyday care and support they deliver actually can recognise the recovery model. And it's fascinating because guess what happens when we get one group of psychiatrists and nurses to come and present their recovery-based CPAs to other consultants. It's fascinating. They argue. I'm not doing it in my service. I've had consultants say to me, I'm not doing it in my service. I won't tell you what I tell them because that would be highly inappropriate. But the point is, that's for me what recovery is. Recovery is that day-to-day struggle, debate, argument about shaping the experience. I am not saying recovery hubs and colleges are not important. I'm not saying peer workers are important. But when we really evaluate recovery in 3 or 4 years' time, the real message will be hundreds and thousands of service users and carers who describe their experience based around recovery. couple more musings, then I'm going to go. My trust is going through the FT process. We've not been allowed to go through the FT process because we've had a secure hospital. One of the good things about the Health and Social Care White Paper, some would say the only good thing, no, I'm only joking, is that we're allowed to be an FT. And we're going to board. Anybody from FTs here? You know what I mean, don't you? When the Francis report came out, my task got 20 times bigger. So I've just come from NHS London. We've just had our quality and safety review leading up to our board. And there it was, the question sitting there, what are you going to do about the Francis report? And me and my team found ourselves talking about recovery. Because if the people in mid-staffs felt they owned their recovery, felt they'd been partners in their care, a lot of the issues wouldn't have happened. So it began to dawn on me that recovery is an issue, not just for mental health trusts, but it's actually a fairly important model that we can spread out across care delivery. But the ultimate test must be, how does it shape and affect the day-to-day experience? So that's your challenge. When you come back in a year's time, you're not allowed to mention recovery colleges. You're not allowed to mention peer workers. You're not allowed to mention quality accounts. You're not allowed to mention bloody journeys. The only thing you can mention are example after example after example of how the day-to-day delivery of mental health care is shaped, is fixed by the principles of recovery. And I'm going to sit at the back of the audience, and every time you mention journeys, peer workers, recovery colleges, I'm going to make a rude noise. So that's the future. Thank you very much.